Grad school was really like a period of discovery for me. The first kind of piece that I discovered like my newly found process in was when Roomful of Teeth came for like a short residency and work with the composers. I had developed sort of like a graphic kind of sketching process. So it didn't have anything to do with notes, just had to do with kind of like shape and form. And at this point, even through undergrad, I started writing in pen because I wanted everything to be and feel intentional. So if you looked at all my sketchbooks, scribbling marks everywhere. Some things are written two, three, four times in a row, but I just needed to get it. I wanted to get it right. And I wanted to feel good before I put it into notation software. And during this time of George Floyd, I was writing everything mostly in pencil. There's a piece that I did for Load Bang, and then another piece that I did for Sputterbox, and a couple more that I was just writing everything in pencil and just not feeling too confident or proud of myself and like erasing things instead of like seeing my progress linearly going from beginning to end. It was really rough because I just felt so unsure of myself. And it's like, oh yeah, well, how does that translate? But after this piece that I did for Will Yager, which is the graphic score, which is also in pencil, but it's very different.
Yeah, yeah.
I needed that to be in pencil because it's graphic, it's very visual. But after that, that was like my kind of the end of my slump where I was just like, yeah, you know what, I can do this. I can be a composer. And after that point, I started writing everything in pen again, which is very interesting. And it took me, it was that 2 year period where I was just kind of back and forth between, what am I doing? Some pieces are in pencil, some pieces are in pen. It's like, what's going on here? Why am I like this? Why can't I just, make the art that I want to make? And so, yeah, I didn't really make that connection until after the fact, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, I started writing in pen again. Like this is really nice." Just getting back to that point of intentionality, which is all that really matters to me while I'm writing, is being very intentional.
Yeah, I like that. And I love Will Yager. I met him a few months ago and he's awesome. And I can imagine that um he's the right kind of person to help you arrive at this point as well. I don't know if
Yeah,
you want to talk about that, but I just wanted to give him a shout out.
yeah, I do actually, because he's a performer who doesn't really have limits. I met him at Cortona Sessions with his ligament duo with Annika, and they were just such an incredible duo. I had never heard anything like it before. But what struck me was Will's playing. He doesn't really play in the traditional sense, and I like to think of him as a player, a performer with no limits. And so I approached this composition. I was like, Will has no limits. Well, how am I supposed to write something for this performer who is just so, prolific, so expressive, who has an arsenal of performance styles under his belt? Like, what do I do for somebody like this? And it's like, oh yeah, if Will doesn't have any limits, I shouldn't put any limits on myself either. And so created this graphic score in mind just to sort of like act as a guide for no limitations.
And I have to point out, because we haven't acknowledged it yet, but Will Yager is a double bassist, and that's such an interesting instrument to kind of discuss this concept of no limits on, because it's a bass. There, I guess there are limits, but what kind of things did you discover in working with him? I'd imagine you worked with him quite closely on this piece if it's a graphic score and whatnot.
So I actually created the score in sort of like an ABA kind of form, and I wanted to contrast texture and color. So Will's a performer who has no limits. I imposed a couple of limits in certain kind of ways. So the first part of the score is all about natural harmonics. I think of all the string instruments, harmonics on bass just sound so incredible. So the first part of the score is about kind of working around these natural harmonics, creating this sort of really whimsical kind of soundscape, and then we move into the middle. That's more about some of the other partials on some of the other strings, as well as stop notes to give this sort of like kind of this sort of eerie kind of feel that goes back to this whimsical harmonic kind of section. That's how it looks in the score as well. It's like very, very cut and dry. But the interpretation, I was just like, he can make any kind of sounds. not just with notes, not just with traditional bowing styles, that kind of thing. So it's just like, yeah, he opened me up to like the bass being such a dynamic instrument that you can kind of do anything. And so when I'm hoping, I haven't heard anybody interpret this a different way yet, but I'm really excited to see kind of like how other people interpret it differently based on the very kind of loose instructions that are given.
Do you have very many pieces like this, or was this kind of a first time that you really committed to like graphic notation, for example?
Yes, this is the first piece that I've actually committed to doing a graphic score in this way that's basically just all images or images and like symbols. I have tried to incorporate some graphic elements in other parts of my score, but never anything that's just no music, just visuals.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Micromaker by Loose Leaf Transmissions. We hope you enjoyed this brief glimpse into the inner workings of the creative life. If this resonated with you, be sure to check out the full conversation on Music Maker with Tyler Kline, a podcast exploring craft and process, philosophy and inspiration, and the honest, often messy parts of being an artist, creative uncertainty, purpose and identity, and resilience. You can find Music Maker wherever you get your podcasts or by visiting musicmakerpodcast.com.